You're listening to Consolidate That. Ukraine is my motherland. It is now under a savage attack by Russia. Ukraine is shielding Europe and the rest of the civilized world from Putin's barbaric aggression. Ukrainians are brave and effectively fighting back. Let's help. Make a donation to Armed Forces of Ukraine. Link is in the show notes. Hashtag Stand with Ukraine.
Welcome back to Consolidate That. Ivan, great to see you again. I'm excited about our guest. I think she's one of the few people within Galaxy Vets that can banter back and forth as much as you and I can. So I think she's going to be a really great guest to have today.
Hi, Ryan. I'm really excited today to introduce our very special Director of Vet Hospital Integrations, Shannon Gervais. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, that works.
Will work. All right. So Shannon dedicated over 20 years to the veterinary industry. She combines her years of team management and passion for the industry into her roles as Director of Veterinary Hospital Integrations. Shannon is responsible for the successful transition between the hospital team and Galaxy Vets. She focuses her attention on the needs of the team to provide a thoughtful approach to this change while continuing to drive the operational success of the hospital. Shannon, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
So, what we know from your background, which was not listed here, is that you used to be a veterinary technician or technologist. What's the politically correct term?
Well, technically in Canada, I'm a veterinary technologist, but technician and technologist are both politically correct. And I am still a registered veterinary technologist.
Exciting. And isn't there is it a month or a week? Let's give a shout out to our colleagues.
Amazing. Yes. In Canada, it is a month, which started on October 1st. So, in special recognition of Veterinary Technician Technologist Week and month between the two countries, I would love to get a huge shout out to all of my heroes that are out there rocking this amazing profession every day. I truly admire each and every one of you, no matter what company or organization you work for. And I would like to thank you for everything that you do for us.
So Shannon, you mentioned that it's a month in Canada and it's a week in US. Do we love our technicians more than people in the United States?
It sure feels like it if we're dedicating a month to recognition for our techs and technologists.
I actually think that we should celebrate every year because I don't think that I would ever become a vet if we didn't have the techs teach me and help me. And when I started out of the vet school in the emergency hospital, I went straight there, then technicians were my lifeline. And so they continued until I was in the hospitals as a clinician. So thank you and shout out to all the technicians that I worked with and those that I didn't and those that hopefully will join us in Galaxy. Shannon, we have a really cool process that I want you to unpack for us. So usually when consolidators are acquiring a clinic, they're going into this mode of, some people call it a 90-day plan or a 100-day plan. And essentially most of them shove their methodologies of growth immediately after the acquisition when people are stressed out and afraid to lose their job. How do we do it differently from others?
Well, that's a great question, Ivan. Thanks so much for bringing light to this important process. So, the integration process is something that it literally does start on day one. But what that means to Galaxy is a little bit different than what it means in some other consolidators' world. So for us, the integration is literally a welcome and introduction of that hospital team into our Galaxy. And what we look at is transferring over those really necessary operational components as quickly and smoothly as possible, making sure that the oxygen is on for those patients, making sure that our team members are paid on time, and making sure that there is a clear communication with all of our departments and our team members. So I get to be a huge part of that. I get to introduce our amazing new hospital team into our amazing Galaxy, and I like to call myself a little bit of a tour guide when it comes to that part of the process.
I like that. The tour guide of the process. So essentially, what we try to do if I'm interpreting correctly, we are trying to do as little as possible after the acquisition
Correct. That is
compared to.
absolutely correct.
Okay, well, how do we make these hospitals successful, and what is the period that they're entering in after this minimal integration, and when do we actually want to start introducing things of improvement, and what does need to happen with the team to do that?
That's another great question. And I mean, it's one that we are very transparent about. And this is actually, oh, I'll say it's my favorite phase because it's combining a lot of really cool processes, including some project management tools from the technical side, but also some really important change management framework that centers on the people side. So this process that we have is called stabilization. So this stabilization phases, there's actually three of them. And during these phases, there are, it begins with phase one, which is called the socialization phase. Phase two is the assessment phase, and phase three is the implementation phase. So I'll dig into that a little bit deeper if you'd like.
Definitely. Yeah,
Please
kick us
do.
off on the first one.
Okay, perfect. So, socialization phase. So, first of all, I will start by saying that I actually took the concepts of design thinking when building out stabilization. So, it's kind of interesting for me with everything that I've learned coming onto Galaxy and incorporating everything into these phases that are so important to our hospital team's development as well as the value proposition. So, building that out, looked at some socialization pieces. So, what do we need to do within that first, few months after we integrate a hospital? One of the big things is that we need to listen, right? So, we need to listen to our teams. We need to have these conversations. We need to take a look at what change management looks like in the hospital. Change management itself is a process. It's a very people focused process. So it takes a look at defining out what needs to happen in the hospital. So we kind of take a look like, hey, does it make sense to hire somebody? What are you guys struggling with? What are some of your pain points? What are some of the things that you're super proud of? Tell me about those things. Really taking that deeper dive into looking at the hospital. It's also about starting to socialize some of the things that we have to offer the hospital teams. So, hey, they talk about something that might be, a pain point for them. So that's great. Let's see where Galaxy can help you with that.
So Shannon, when you're doing that, who outside of, well, I guess at this point now everyone is part of the Galaxy team, right? But who from the previous team, right, the existing team that's there at the clinic,
Mhm.
who's sort of the internal champion, or who do you lean on to kick off some of that socialization?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. So, I mean, basically, we're going to look at the hospital management team. We're going to look into the leadership. There's people that are usually identified right in the beginning, and it's also with the seller. So whoever's come forward with that as well.
So this socialization piece is also introducing everything that we bring to the table. The other thing
Yeah.
that we do on the background, we're also slowly looking at their data, and then we are also looking at what in the future changes that are better to implement. Because essentially, what I've seen with many consolidators, what they do, they come in with their cookie cutter approach and sort of the package, and things that I've seen not work so well. They come in with these five tools that they apply essentially to every hospital, how they're going to bring value to their investors. One of them is bringing more marketing efforts. Another one is potentially look at the labor cost. Another one is to look at the inventory management process, and God forbid, change all the technology on the spot, which is my favorite because I've seen so many consolidators come in, and before people even figure out what's going to happen with them, are they going to have a job? then consolidators come in and say, all right, we're going to change the software you're using, we're going to implement something like SmartFlow, which I've done many times, we're going to change the service codes and how we call things, then we're going to change the formulary because we buy cheaper stuff, and we just going to use these things now. They have different names and different names in the PIM, so you can't find the products that you're selling to clients when you're selling to them up front, so you can't even charge for them appropriately. And then we're going to change the wellness plans and the lab provider on you,
My
and
god.
good luck.
Yeah, my head hurts.
so
My head is, like, pounding just thinking about all of that.
So we took a different approach. We decided that we're gonna A, learn the team,
Mhm,
B, we're gonna learn what practice needs to be done
mhm,
to improve it. But the main thing that also we need to work with them is to explain to them what culture they're joining.
mhm.
So let's actually dive a little bit into that. How do you conduct that? How do you explain to the new team what culture is inside of Galaxy?
Ooh, I like that. So that's a very good question. And it comes back to the first presentation that we have right in integrations, actually. So as we dive through and continue to grow with the hospital through stabilization, there's more points that we kind of bring forward, which is, really talking about our values as an organization. So one of the things that I love to focus on is founders mindset. So it's obviously a huge core value. It There's a ton of creativity within hospitals that leans into founders mindset as well. And owners mindset is another one that's right there. So we start talking about all of these pieces and how they come together.
So you mentioned three phases, and we talked about one. So what is that second phase?
Well, here, I'm gonna bring us back over to discussing the assessment phase, which is phase 2, and it will actually circle back into what you were talking about with that data. So what we've created is the WSJF, so the form, right, that consolidates all of the data and helps us point us into the right direction based off of data. So that's something that's really cool. And I've never seen an organization actually use a tool like that to justify what we're hearing in conversation and the socialization piece within the hospital. So that is something that I think is truly exciting, and it pulls that, the conversations, that people part of the first phase of socialization into the data, and the data actually ends up showing us exactly some of the things that we're talking about. So an amazing connection. It then actually poses right into the assessment phase, because that's what it is. Work shortage job first, template is complete, we start to look at these things for the assessment. Okay, so what do we need, right? So this WSJF form is going to point us in the direction that makes sense when it comes to our proposals for the value creation plans. And then we're going to justify that with the conversations that have been had with the team and identifying those needs.
Can you unpack that a little bit? Because you're saying that
Yeah,
abbreviation, and maybe I'm not familiar. So
WSJF is weighted shortage job first. This is something that I find is extremely helpful. It's something that could help any organization. And if they're currently not looking at it, it would be really beneficial for them to look at it, because it helps to justify a
So,
lot of
weighted
things.
shorter's job first is something that we stole from the SAFE actually methodology, and what it is. There's so many things that you can do in the business, and whether it's in the clinic or in your corporate, in your portfolio of the company at the level of the executive. When you have too many plans and too many goals, I've seen so many organizations getting lost in having, okay, we identified 47 goals for the next quarter, and then you never finish any of them. You start them, you don't finish them. So, which ones do you start with? And weighted shortest job first is that sequence that helps you. It's a formula how you actually sort out multiple items on your priority list into the most important ones first. So thank you for using that tool, Shannon. It's
Yeah,
very
not
cool
a
that you guys are
problem.
applying that.
Absolutely.
Phase three.
Yeah.
What is
So
phase three?
Phase 3 is implementation phase. So that's where we're combining everything that we've learned from the tools that we're using, from the technical piece, and the framework for the change management piece to align on where we need to go as a team, as a hospital team. So this is a piece that this is buy-in from every member of the hospital team. It is absolutely essential to have that piece moving forward to be able to make any changes that we would need to or want to at the hospital level, to be able to provide the success for the value creation plans that we have to implement.
So what's very important, I find, in this whole process is that when most consolidators come in and they throw these what they call value creation plans or growth levers at the team, the the team just heard that they're sold, and usually that's done on the day. And then next day, the suits are coming in and telling them what to do next without even understanding whether this team understands what's happening or not. So I think it's paramount importance to first introduce the culture. Second, to introduce them to even the concept of ownership and the owner's mindset. We're the only
Agree.
consolidator that provides equity to the entire team. But what does that mean? When you're telling technician or the receptionist that hypothetically somewhere there in the cloud they have some sort of shares that they don't know the value of, that doesn't really mean anything. So in that first phase, we're really trying to explain to them what does it mean to be an owner. And it really means not only the fact that you have shares in the company, but also what you do and how you change what you do helps to increase the value of those shares. So essentially, once people understand that what they own as shares of the company at Galaxy, then there's a buy-in into why they need to change. And then in this third phase, when we are determined through the weighted shoulders job first, what needs to be done, then they actually understand the why behind it, and then the change management is successful because people understand the why. So that's why I was
You
always
got it.
fascinated with people that are coming in and just saying, "Hey, we're going to change all this stuff and because we want to make more money." That's not very compelling to me.
Absolutely. And there's two things that, in that synopsis of what you just gave there, there's two things that stick out the most. And I think this is the thing that often gets missed is the why and seeking to understand. There's so many things that are changing for a hospital team, making sure that everybody's on the same page. There's always the questions of why, right? And understanding why is the huge component of this to make sure that everybody is in alignment moving forward. That's how you can truly define the success, and watch the success for that matter, when everybody is aligned on the process and why they're doing something. And yeah.
All of these steps, how long should it take?
Ooh, great question. So when we look at integration, we're looking at um, day 1 through 30. So it's that first month. When we're talking about stabilization, phase one, we're looking at days 30 through 60. Stabilization phase two is days 60 through 90, and stabilization phase three, again, which is the implementation phase, runs days 90 through 120.
So essentially, you're giving people the time to acclimate and then actually participate in what we're calling, because people, it's just so interesting. The consolidators call it value creation plan. They want
Hmm.
people to create the value for them, but they're not getting the buy-in from them to create value. And especially because the value that they create is for the investors, not for the technicians, not
Yep.
for the doctors. So when there's no ownership in the groups where they don't have the shares,
Yep.
what is the value created and for who?
That's
And
right.
essentially, that's why I think that many of them are failing in engaging with the teams. And that's why we have 30% churn of the staff 6 months post acquisition, which is the statistics of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen that. I can relate to that. I can speak to that. I mean, it's really there's a transparency piece here as well, right? It's letting everybody know, like, hey, this is what we are. This is how we work. This is our process. And it's not hiding behind, oh, we're not going to change anything. Nothing's going to be different, that kind of thing. Like, we're looking at enabling change in a positive way, and having that collaboration with the team to make sure that that is a success.
Excellent. Well, we're at the top of the sort of episode. We usually try to keep it to sort of 25 minutes, but we always ask a question of, is there a TED talk, a book, a YouTube video, something that inspired you recently or you find fascinating that you would like to share with the listeners?
You know what? You might think that this is crazy, but my favorite books are always bad dad joke books. I read a lot of other books that help me when it comes to building out various different protocols, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I think settling down with a good old fashioned dad joke book is the way that I like to end my evening, with a little bit of laughter. And it sure does make for a restful evening, let me tell you.
My son thinks that I wrote those books.
That's like a
So,
whole. That's. I'm expecting now to
Uh,
get a lot more of those sent over to us as we go forward.
well, Shannon, thank you. Thank you for finding the time. I know you're super busy with the hospitals. I know that our pipeline is extremely full at the moment, and we're going to get really busy in the upcoming months.
you bet.
So I appreciate your time and the knowledge and the contribution to the success of this organization. And yeah, thank you for being always the happiest person on the team.
You betcha. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you so much for listening to Consolidate That. If you want to hear our new episodes, please find us on any podcast platform. Also, you can learn more about us on our website at galaxyvets.com.